Very, there I am, okay. It's a good thing I can shout. Thank you guys for coming to my presentation today, and a special thank you to Tableau for putting on this wonderful conference. It's been a lot of fun so far, and I hope everyone else has been enjoying themselves too. Just a note, Austin is actually my hometown, so it's been a great experience to come back home and not only be here with the Tableau crew, but also spend some time with my family. So I'm excited. Before I start sort of diving into my company and who we are, like I said, I'm originally from Austin, but now I live in Washington, D.C., and I work for Deeproot Analytics as a research analyst. Prior to joining Deeproot in January of 2015, I was a analytics intern on Capitol Hill, and prior to that, I was the geospatial analyst at the Texas Cancer Registry, which is just a couple blocks away from here. And at the Texas Cancer Registry, that's where I actually got my first sort of introduction to Tableau. The branch manager came by my desk and said, hey, IT is going to come and install this new software on your computer. Can you maybe figure out how to use it? And, of course, right out of college, I said, yeah, absolutely, no problem. I got this. I'm a millennial. I know how to use computers. Had no idea what I was doing. But so thinking back to then when I just started using Tableau, and now fast forward 3 years, and now at Deeproot, my primary role is managing our product and our platform and the daily use of that. And what that is essentially is just a series of dashboards that we host and use and develop with Tableau. All right. Oh, I can use this. So, my presentation today is, first and foremost, kind of how, we've used Tableau, from the early stages of our startup, and we use it as first and foremost a primary data delivery platform. We have a lot of data. We have big data, and we need a way to deploy that data to our clients, in a way that's scalable and easy to use. And Tableau's been the way we've been doing that. But as we've grown as a startup, we started using Tableau more and more as a business intelligence tool, which I imagine that's how most people in this room have traditionally used Tableau. So like I said, we use it as a business intelligence tool, but we also use it as a quality assurance tool. We have lots and lots of data, and as we've grown and expanded our data sources, we need to hold our data vendors accountable, and Tableau has given us a way to do that. And lastly, and probably the most fun part of this presentation, Tableau, we've used it as a canvas for marketing and thought leadership. Instead of hiring out graphic designers and things like that, we've said, hey, we're creative. We can do fun things with Tableau. If we want to convey unique insight and use a data visualization to show that, we've got a good group of people who can do that, and we can put it together through Tableau. So I'll walk you through a little bit of who Deeproot is as a company. Deeproot Analytics, we are not landscaping. We are a predictive media analytics firm. And we essentially focus on bringing the same form of technology that you would normally use for voter contact, to knock on doors or make phone calls. We're bringing that technology to television targeting. So we like to say that our data, Deeproot's data, informs the bookend of a media buy. Through our platform, our clients are actually able to use data, to plan their media as they're placing ads. And then once they've booked ads, we can provide them a situational analysis of their ads as they're running on television. So we like to say that our platform helps our clients reach the right audience with the right message at the right time. Now, I like this illustration here. This is an article from the Wall Street Journal that our company was featured in. And I want to point out that what we do at Deeproot is very much at the forefront of a changing television advertising landscape. And to illustrate that, I love this article. It's a little dated because it's from 2014, and we've since been featured in the Wall Street Journal and other publications since then. But if you look closely, you can see Don Draper from Mad Men. You guys familiar with? Yeah, okay. Well, if you can see, he's kind of suspiciously looking over his shoulder at one of our beautiful scatter plots. So I like the little tongue-in-cheek sort of humor with that. As you can see, sort of illustrates that Deeproot is, very much changing the way traditional advertising is bought and measured. Lastly, I've mentioned that our data is big, and our tagline is we like to bring big data to big media. Okay, I forget I can use this. All right, we're going to dive into some of our dashboards here, and I can show you a little bit of what our platform is, but I want to sort of give you an overview and some context about why we do what we do. So Deeproot Analytics was essentially born out of the ashes of the Mitt Romney campaign in 2012. I'm sorry, I know it's the day after the election, but we're going to talk a little bit about politics. So sorry. And we were founded, with the goal to address the problems of traditional television advertising. So the first problem is that TV is the largest line item in any advertising budget. Any guesses out there for how much an ad on television might cost? $250,000, sometimes. NFL football game, easily. I'll give you a granular example from my hometown, Washington, D.C. So a single 30-second primetime spot in Washington, D.C. on, let's just say, a program like 60 Minutes, okay? This is a regularly scheduled program. It's not a sporting event, anything like that. I can tell you that a certain political entity actually booked an ad on this program for $18,000. To give you some context, I bought my first car in Austin at a dealership down the road for less than that, okay? That's more than my car cost. Now let's imagine that you want to book 4 spots on a single episode of 60 Minutes. That's going to cost you $72,000. Let's say you want to book 4 spots per episode over the course of a couple months. Let's just say an example from August 28th to November 5th. That's going to come with a price tag of $800,000. That's a lot of money. And to give you, a little bit more of this is a very granular example of what a television ad would cost. Media buys, and specifically political media buys, are booked with hundreds of spots over many more months of advertising. So here, this is just showing you, the price tag that a very small portion of a media buy would come with. And this brings me to my next point, in that TV is bought to maximize points and not to optimize dollars. So you would think with the price tag like this for just 30 seconds on air of television, there'd be some accountability, right? Yeah, maybe. Okay, well, actually, guess what? The second problem with television advertising is that TV is the least data-driven and the least accountable. So traditional TV is bought on demographic profiles, and it's measured via handwritten diary entries. So let's just stick with our 60 Minutes example right here. Nationally, 60 Minutes has a television rating of 9.7. What does that mean? Any guesses? No, okay, so what that means is that, a company called Nielsen, who does this traditional TV measurement, has said that on any given Sunday, about 10% of the population, of the adult population, is tuned into 60 Minutes. So how do they get that 10%? Any guesses? Oh, it's actually this right here. Oh, yeah? Yeah, okay, good. We have someone who's actually done it. So you can go to Nielsen's website, you can request one of these television diaries, and what you're gonna do is you're just gonna write down your TV watching habits throughout the course of a week, right? A couple of problems with this. Any guesses as to the first one? All right, so that's actually the second problem. I'll go into that. But yeah, so there's a big difference in what people say they watch versus what they actually watched. So like Anthony pointed out, people might forget to record their TV viewing habits. We're all busy. How many of you have ever gotten a journal and said, I'm going to journal my thoughts every day? And yeah, you did that for about 3 days, and then you picked that same journal up 6 months later when it was taking up space, right? Same concept here. The other thing is that people might be embarrassed about what they watch on television and may not record accurate information. For example, I could say that I'm watching great masterpieces of the Metropolitan Opera on PBS, but what I'm actually watching is The Bachelorette on ABC. So, no offense to Bachelor Nation fans, Deeproot's a big fan of the franchise. But the other issue with traditional measurement is that there's a small sample size. I took this number here right from Nielsen's website. Over the course of a given year, they will collect just over 2 million diaries from households in America. Now, 2 million is a big number. However, in the United States, and Deeproot alone has access to over 60 million active set-top boxes, and that translates to data across 300 networks and over 1,600 television stations. So that 2 million is roughly about 3% of the available TV viewership data out there. And like I mentioned before, there's a difference in what people say they watch versus what they actually watch. The diary, right, is very much at the hands of the user recording that information. The set-top box, however, does not lie. So how does Deeproot find a solution to this problem? First step is that we have put aside that diary measurement of TV viewing, and we've said, hey, we're going to go and we're going to look for observable media consumption data sets. And this can be in the form, most of our data comes directly from the set-top box, but we have many different data sources, such as ad occurrence data, we have earned media data, we have radio data, things like that. So this is just one small example. But I want to show you here that this is a sample of set-top box data. You can see here that we have a DMA code, that's a media market. We have a station, and believe it or not, these are actually Texas stations. And then we have a device ID, and then we have tune in and tune out events. So what this data set is telling me, this is an individual with this particular device, and they're indecisively flipping through channels, deciding what to watch on television. So this data gets big. And like I said, we have samples of this data, other observable media data. And what that tells us, it tells us what's being watched on television, right? But it's not enough for us to know what is being watched. We need to know what kind of audience is watching that TV. So the second part of our solution is we have gone out and modeled audiences. And through strategic audience targeting, we actually have over 20 politically modeled audiences and over 10 consumer and issue advocacy audiences. So any idea what these audiences might look like? No? No one? Okay, well, I'll show you. So for our political audiences, we have anyone from swing voters, right? And we have libertarians, very traditional political audiences that, especially in this year, these are people that candidates and campaigns and super PACs are going to want to talk to on television. But we've actually gone out, and this year alone, we went and we modeled, audiences that are specific to the automobile advertising industry. So what we found is we found profiles and audiences of people who are, they might be interested in buying a new car versus a used car. They might think that dealer service is higher on their list of priorities versus the dealer's reputation. So we know who these people are. We know what kind of television they watch. And on the one hand, we have that observable media consumption data. And then the other hand, we have our audiences. And our process stitches those things together. And then what we need to do is we need to deploy that data to our clients in a way that they can use, and they can derive those insights to help inform their media buys. So any guesses as to how we do that? Tableau, yay!
Is this not biased based on what your existing model is inferring from, because you don't have the data of exactly what they're watching? Who's watching?
Right. So yeah, I couldn't, look up Adam here and say he was watching so-and-so on whatever. No, it's aggregated to that's why we use the audiences, is because it's a profile of individuals that fit a certain, political behavior, consumer behavior, et cetera. So.
But data is not there in the viewership. You're only at a device level, but you're trying to match the pattern to your audience, but it may be overfitting based on the criteria, because you don't have. Is that true?
There's some truth to that. Yeah, follow up with me afterwards. I'd definitely love to talk to you about that more. So what we've done is through Tableau, with our big data, right? We have lots of TV data, we have audience data. We've actually gone through and we've created a multi-function client interface. And so using Tableau, we've actually developed a series of many dashboards that, fit our clients' needs, but they give them the ability to interact with our data. They can do that simply. And then they can also, use that, any way they can imagine. And so with that, I'll just dive right into the dashboards. All right. That transition went so smoothly. I was practicing the transitions, and boom, it was right there. Okay. All right. So this is an example of one of our dashboards that a client might use if they were planning their media buy and they actually wanted to figure out what are the best places to place ads on a particular television station. So I want to make the point here that our data it's big, it's complex, it can be messy at times. And what we've been able to do is we've been able to take that complex data and through just the use of very simple visualizations. So we've got bar charts here, a line chart, another bar chart, and a bubble chart. Very simple visualizations that can give our clients very meaningful insights to how they're going to plan their media buys. So I'll just go through and I'll show you just sort of how we would actually use this dashboard, or we'd advise our clients to use the dashboard. So starting at the top here, I can pick a DMA, which stands for a designated media market. My sample dashboard here has data from Ohio. So let's go ahead and pick Cleveland. And then we'll go ahead and pick a television category. Let's go ahead and use cable. And then let's go ahead and pick a television station. Any suggestions? HGTV, great, everyone loves that. Oh, I forgot something. I forgot something very key. So I'm going to deselect. All right, now through just the use of a couple filters, I've selected, I'm saying I just want to look at data in the Cleveland media market for HGTV programming. And immediately the whole entire dashboard starts to change. But I can filter down even more. I want to pick a particular target audience in this instance. So for my sample here, I have two audiences. One is an audience called disaffected Democrats. The other is called reluctant Republicans. Again, I'm sorry, I know everyone's tired of politics, but and I'll go, at the end of the presentation, I'll go into a little bit more about what these audiences are. So let's just go ahead and pick one. Any preferences? No? All right. I'm at the helm here. Okay. So I can go ahead and pick that audience, and you can see the visualization change. And right now, what we have here is I can see, just with a couple of filters applied, wait, there it is. I can see that over the course of the day, my target rating, which is my rating for my disaffected Democrat audience, is just a little bit higher than the rating for adults over 18 years old in that media market. What I can see here, though, very clearly, I can see, hey, from about 5 p.m. onwards, that rating gap is a little bit bigger. So maybe that's the time of day when my target audience is a little bit more likely to be watching HGTV than the adult population. I can even filter down to a specific time of day just using this day part visualization right here that also uses an action filter. So very clearly, I can see that the highest ratings for HGTV come during prime time. No shock there. And by doing that, when I click on that, it filters down this last viz right here, and I can see the top programs. So if I'm a media buyer and I'm trying to figure out where's the best place to buy ads on HGTV for this disaffected Democratic audience, I could say prime time is going to come with the highest ratings, and obviously a cable network like this has tons and tons of programs, but I can filter down to the top 10 programs. So already I've gone from tons and tons of data, tons and tons of channels. I've been able to narrow it down to a specific station and find the most optimal programs on that station. And guess what? This thing works with. There we go. So this is another example of a visualization that we would give our clients access to as they're planning their media buys. So on that previous dashboard, what was showing you just bar charts, bubble charts. This is another example of a very simple data visualization. It's a scatter plot, and every single circle on this scatter plot represents an individual program on television. Now, I've already given you the answer here. There are over 42,000 options on this visualization. That's a lot. That's too much to work with, right? But again, Tableau has given us the ability to develop this in a way that we can give our clients the ability to filter down to just the things, to just the markets and the targets and maybe the TV category that they want to explore. But then we also give them the ability through these slider filters to optimize these shows even more to meet their specific needs. So I have this pre-filtered already. So in this example, my target audience is reluctant Republicans. My media market is Dayton, Ohio, and I'm looking at broadcast television right here. Those are the 4 major networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, and sometimes the CW. And so what I can see here is that I'm looking at across all day parts. And what I want to know is I've filtered my data down to I went from 42,000 to fewer than 50 options. And what I have here are programs that are, first and foremost, they're below average in cost. So if the media buyer is focused on saving dollars, right, these are good programs to buy because they don't have as high of a price tag. But if a program is cheap, we don't necessarily want to, advise them to, buy ads, on a program that no one's going to watch, right? These programs, not only do they have good value, but they also have good reach on this particular target audience. We know that we're going to be talking to a lot of our reluctant Republican voters. And additionally, I've been able to filter down this visualization such that these programs are at least 15% likely, these programs have a 15% more, pardon me, one more time, all right? On these programs, reluctant Republicans are 15% more likely to be watching than the general population. So again, very simple, scatter plot. It can look very complex with those 42,000 options, but just with a couple of filters, we can get these down to fewer than 50, which is a very manageable data set that media buyers can actually use. So one other thing we really like about Tableau is that, as you've used it, we can put together visualizations like this, but we can also make visualizations that reflect an environment that sometimes our clients are more likely or more comfortable using. Can anybody guess what that might look like? No? Okay. Huh? Maps. I'll show you some maps, but also I mentioned at the beginning that Deeproot is very much at the forefront of a changing television advertising landscape. And sometimes that comes with a little bit of resistance, right? And sometimes we'll interact with clients who some of these visualizations, they're not that wild about it. They're cool, they look great, but at the end of the day, we have media buyers that are spreadsheet enthusiasts. They spreadsheet everything, including the grocery list. And so instead of going out and doing one-off projects and exporting our data and then delivering it to them in a spreadsheet, we just give it to them right in Tableau. Again, we can use it natively in our platform with our product, with our branding on it. And what we do is we structure, all right, there we go. We can make it such that they can filter down to the programs that they want. And it's also sortable. So here I've sorted these programs that are, this is broadcast in Cincinnati during prime time. And I've said, hey, I want to sort these from the highest index to the lowest. And again, it's similar to a spreadsheet. Some of our media buyers are much more comfortable using this than our other data visualizations. And Tableau also, as you guys know, you can export data from Tableau. And so if they really, really don't want to use this, they can just highlight it and export it and load it right into Excel where they're more comfortable. So we love that, that flexible functionality that Tableau gives us, because not only can we put together cool visualizations that stand out, but we can also meet our clients' needs. Okay, we're going to get really into some politics here. So what I've showed you thus far are examples of dashboards that that our clients would use as they are planning their media buys. But another product of value that we offer is a situational analysis of how ads actually perform while they're on the air. And this is an example of one of those dashboards that we would use and we'd update daily, and such that our clients would know, exactly how their ads are performing. So this dashboard is titled Air Wars, and it's exactly what the title says. It's a state of the race overview. So I can see here that from July 1st to August 1st, the particular audience I'm looking at is the disaffected Democrats. I can easily see here that these are the Republican advertisers on the air, and this is the Democratic advertiser. I can see the number of individual creatives each political advertiser has put up. I can see the number of markets that they're advertising in, and I can see right here the cumulative total number of impressions each sponsor is serving to that target audience. Over time, right? This is time right here, and this is the number of net impressions. I can see day by day just who's winning the impressions game. As you can see here, on most days over the course of the month, Republican advertisers were serving more impressions on that target audience than were Democratic advertisers. Over here, we can see that, on these days, Democrats they talked to more targets than did Republicans. Here, we can see that over the course of any given day part on television, I can see that there's a share of impressions across these different times of day. And it looks like here that Republicans generally have a larger share of impressions across most day parts, but I can easily see here that in early fringe and also in late fringe, and early fringe is roughly 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., late fringe is 11:30 p.m. to 2 a.m., I can see that Democratic advertisers are serving more impressions than Republican advertisers. So if I'm a GOP strategist for any political entity in Ohio, I can see that these are times of the day where I maybe want to put some attention on. All right, last one, and then we'll take a little break here. This is another example of a dashboard we would use to give our clients the ability to perform a very granular analysis on their data. These dots right here, each one represents an individual program that each advertiser has put an ad on, and they are structured here such that this program right here has the most net impressions for Republican advertisers. But the beauty of this is that this is a great tool if we want to look at things at a large scale. So right now we're looking at Republicans versus Democrats, but I can use this right here as a filter, and I can filter down for individual sponsors, and I can also do individual creatives. So I'll just go ahead and do that. So let's say that I wanted to do a head-to-head comparison of two different political advertisers. Let's go ahead and say I want to look at the Fighting for Ohio fund, and then I only have one option. I want to look at how they were doing just against the Senate Majority PAC. And easily, just as you can see at the scale of Republicans versus Democrats, I could see that Republicans had an advantage, but when I look just at these two individual sponsors, it tells a different story. All right, how many of you, I know it's been a long election cycle, but how many of you have seen an ad that starts a little something like this? So-and-so candidate does this and does that and voted that way, and they're just mean, right? Anybody seen an ad like that? Okay. All right. And then a couple hours later, have you seen an ad like this from the opponent saying, you've been hearing a lot of these things about me, but I'm here to say that they're not true, right? Okay. So that's an example of an attack and a response ad. And where this visualization really has its most impactful utility is when we're looking at those specific ads. So again, I don't know if these are attack or response ads, but I'm just going to make it up. So let's say the Fighting for Ohio Fund runs an ad that says, the Senate Majority PAC is evil, and they do, this and that, right? I can see here, just by clicking on there, on that individual ad, I can see the programs where I am hitting the most targets. Now, let's say the Senate Majority PAC sees this and they put up a response ad saying, hey, we're really not that bad, we're great, don't listen to them. Again, the visualization changes. When I was just looking at the attack ad, it seemed like this attack ad was talking to a lot of targets, right? But when I look at my response ad, I can see that more of my targets are actually seeing my response. They're seeing a positive message about this particular advertiser versus the one who's advertising on the attack. All right. Questions so far? I know, I'm burnt out of the political stuff too, so almost over. And the last thing we've been able to do sort of on the client-facing side of our platform is, political strategists, they're not always at their desk, right? And they can have access to their laptop or their desktop to log into these dashboards. So we've actually gone mobile with it. And here I want to give a big shout out to the Tableau community, because coming up with what you see here could not have been done without the resources that we actually found, with kind of the Jedi level Tableau wizards here at the conference. So again, you lose a little bit of the aesthetics here because this is on a big screen and whatnot. But what I can see here is, and our clients could see if they logged into this, they could see from July 1st to August 1st, this particular advertiser, One Nation, ran 1,300 spots. This is the target index they had on the target audience. They served about 5 million impressions, and they were about 88% on target. So immediately, just on the road, they can have, they can have those insights that are telling them how they're doing on the air. But the other thing that we really like about the mobile app, right, and I'll show you guys here. I actually have I have it right here, an advertiser, is our dashboards, in their desktop form, our clients had the ability to actually look at the content of a particular political ad, using, their computers. We'd give them the ability to download that ad, and then they could view it, just on their local PC. Mobile couldn't really do that. We tried doing the mobile ads here on the phone, and we couldn't really download it. So again, using Tableau's, parsing tools, in the data prep process, we were actually able to take, that particular piece of data that gave them access to that ad content, and we were able to redirect it to a web browser so they could actually look at it on their mobile device. Uh-oh, it reset. All right, so I need a volunteer. You want to volunteer? Okay. So, all right, I'll show you this right here. What you can see is this is showing me all of the advertisers in New Hampshire and all the individual ads that they're running. And it's a heat map, right? And it actually shows me, which of these ads has the most points, which one is running the most often. But say I'm a political strategist and I want to know, hey, what is that, what's that ad, what does it say? Is it against my client? Is it for them? So go ahead and click on that little red box right there.
The 580?
Yeah, click on the 580. So he just clicked on the 580, and right away, what I have access to in my browser on my mobile device is I can see that ad on the mobile device. So again, let's see. It's the New Hampshire Senate ad. I think that race just got called, so that's exciting. But anyway, we were, again, wanted to show you this, not so much to, show off our mobile app, but also to say, like, we did this through the Tableau community. So if you're interested in, the resources that we used to actually get to this point, like, come see me afterwards. I'd be happy to point you to those. All right. Now, very quickly, I'm going to transition back to, come on. So I've walked you through thus far sort of how we've used Tableau as our, our client deliverable. It's, the platform that they access on a daily basis. But as we've grown as a startup, we were founded in 2013. I came on in 2015. I was the 4th full-time employee. We're now at 11 people. Woo, big growth. We've been using Tableau more and more as a traditional business intelligence tool. And like I mentioned earlier, we're using it for quality assurance, right? We need to not only have a snapshot of our data, we need to have a snapshot of the data that gets delivered to us from our vendors. So that way, if we see inconsistencies, we can go back to them and say, hey, this is looking a little strange. So to give you some context of, yes, this is, all right, so this is, back in 2013, this is the Deep-Root Data Warehouse, Vintage 1.0, all right? This is very much we're very much a startup. This PC, actually, it has 2 internal hard drives, and then count them 1, 2, 3 external hard drives on them. So, and this is one of 3 computers that looked like this back in 2014. And so, using this, this is, our original data warehouse, if what have you. We had, very direct access to the data. Any question that came up internally, how many markets do we have in this? How much data do we have for so-and-so, et cetera, et cetera. We could go into this PC, and one of the 5 hard drives, we could find the file, and then we could get those numbers directly. Since then, we've actually transitioned over to a cloud-hosted relational database management system. So no longer is our data stored in hard drives like these, but it's distributed amongst tables and things like that. We can't access it directly anymore. We have to run queries and things like that. And so what we wanted to do, as we said, when we transitioned over to that, we need to just take a snapshot of our data footprint. So that way, on any given day when, our sales engineer is coming and saying, hey, I need these numbers for such and such a proposal. Can you query that? And we say, all right, fine. We stop what we're doing and query the data and so forth. And I'm just going to hop right back into the dashboards. OK, so this is an example of one of our internal dashboards that we use. It's from quite a while ago, so I'm not giving away any secrets here. But again, it has a little bit of the Deeproot branding, but it's very simple, right? We want to make sure that our internal dashboards, the data that drives them, that's filled in here, is at the same level of excellence as the data we would deliver to a client. But design-wise, we can come up with things that, as long as they get the job done, it works, right? So right away, I can see that in 2015, using this map here, I can see that there's a problem, right? Anybody want to point it out? Missing states. So first of all, I do have some missing states here, right? And it's not necessarily that they're missing, it's just that we didn't purchase data in those particular states. So all right, we're aware of that. But another thing I see here is I see Arkansas. Arkansas is a different shade of green than the rest of the states. So what that tells me, and we were aware of this, is that our data vendor did not deliver the full product of data for Arkansas. And by the time they did get it to us, it was out of date. We had moved past 2015. We said, we can't use this anymore. And so we just sort of let it be. But this dashboard is also, it has action filters and it's filterable. So if I'm, let's rewind back to 2015. If I'm looking for data in a particular state, in a particular market, how would I get that? If I'm a sales engineer, would I go bug my coworker Matt and say, hey, where's that data? No, I would just come here and use this. So let's use Texas as an example, since we're in Texas. So by clicking on Texas, I can filter down, and immediately I can see that, off the shelf, if a client came to me today and said, I want to do a statewide Texas advertising campaign, I'd be able to tell them that, hey, at the current moment, we only have available to us 4 markets worth of data. And those 4 markets are Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. What else can I see just from this visualization right here about the markets? Right? I can see that there's a difference in size. Of these 4 markets, these are the 4 major cities in Texas, I can see that Austin is the smallest. So what if I'm asking myself, hey, how much viewership do I actually have in Austin? What's the availability of data that I could use to help my clients, plan their media buys? I can click on Austin, and then what I can see here is I can see the number of viewership records by month and by our target audience. So these are our audiences in 2015 here. There's some political, some issue, things like that. And then over the course of the months, I can see the differences in the data as they were delivered to us. What stands out on this visualization to you guys? All right, September. This is a big one that stands out here. And I have to say, this was so this dashboard was actually put together by the 5th full-time employee at Deeproot. We gave it to him after about a week on the job and said, hey, this would be a great way to get your feet wet with Tableau. And I have to say, for someone who had never used Tableau before, this is a very impressive dashboard. But the poor kid, unfortunately, put this together, saw this big red line right here, and said, Hillary, we have a problem. And I come and look, and I say, oh, okay, I'm sorry, you didn't need to panic, actually. There actually isn't a problem here. We actually know about this particular data issue, and you can see it illustrated here. So what actually happened in this instance was that our data vendor altered the way that they were reporting viewership on high definition and standard definition channels in September. So from January to August, let's give an example, they were recording viewership on ESPN HD and ESPN standard definition as 2 distinct channels. In September, they changed that. They started rolling up that high definition and standard definition into 1 channel. So yes, the amount of data dropped off significantly. So we were well aware of that, and while we see this drop off in data, internally it's good for us to know, so that way we can answer those questions. But we can also see that, over the course of the next few months, that data stayed relatively consistent. So there wasn't any sort of mistake or anything like that. So that was good to know. One other thing that stands out in this, which I like to point out, is March. As you can see, our data went up significantly in March. Anyone guess why? March Madness, thank you. And as you can see, March Madness is a very unifying, it's a sporting event all over the country. People are invested in it, and across all different audiences. Everybody loves sports, right? So you can see, of course, viewership jumped significantly. All right, who mentioned that they liked maps earlier? Was that you? Okay, I have a map for you. So we are a political startup, right? Our sales cycle is very cyclical. We are looking at even year races and things like that. And so when we rewind, again, this is back in June of 2015, we were thinking, okay, 2016 is going to be a big year. It's a presidential year. We know that there's going to be a number of Senate races. How are we going to go into our sales meetings with, with a plan for how we're going to pitch our products to these political campaigns? And this was one of the first things I put together on this. Like I said, my background is in GIS and cartography, and so I'm, the resident map lady at Deeproot. And so I put this together just using a publicly available data source, the Cook Political Report. And what I did here was I mapped out all of the 2016 Senate races, and I colored them by their relative competitiveness at that time. Now this map has changed quite a bit, and it looks a little different this morning than it did yesterday. But right away, what I can see here as a small growing startup, I can see, all right, where are my most important prospects, right? So I come here and I could see these are toss-up races. At this point in June of 2015, Wisconsin and Illinois were considered competitive Senate races, right? These are races where they're going to be putting, the campaigns are going to be trying to optimize every corner of their campaign. This includes digital, door knocks, phone calls, and television. So these are places where Deeproot, with our TV targeting, could offer a lot of value. Another thing I see here right away is I see areas that are solid Republican and solid Democrat. These are states where, essentially even a year ago, the cat's in the bag, right? These races are won. Another thing I see here is I see that there are actually open seats. If there's an open Senate seat available, is there a strong GOP or Democratic candidate that's going to jump in, and could we help them, right? And actually, oddly enough, California went unopposed with it. It was both candidates were Democrats. There was not even a GOP candidate in that race. So this map actually went through a number of different iterations as we got closer and closer to the election, and it was interesting to see how it changed, over the course of a few months. But this is an example of something, that we would use as a startup instead of, investing in, ArcMap or something like that. We would use Tableau's mapping capabilities to put this together, and then we'd use this in our sales meetings. But I want to point out something else. Someone noticed on that other dashboard I showed you that we were missing states. And I'll get to that in a minute. So while a lot of the work we do is at the, the nationwide and the state level for state Senate races and things like that, the actual level of geography that we use at Deeproot is the designated media market. So what we did is we put together a map of all the designated media markets in the United States, and you can see all of the different ones across most of the country. But it's not enough, we all know what all the DMAs are and what their codes are and things like that, but we want to know if we have a proposal or we have a client that we're trying to pitch to, we want to say, where can we offer them our services? And so what we did is we flagged each of those markets on that previous map. We flagged each of those markets as based on whether or not we had available data that was ready to go and off the shelf. And right away, this is in 2015, our data footprint at that point looked a little bit like this. I can already see some holes here. I could see Kansas, Utah, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Oregon, right? These are areas where, if a client came to us, on that day in 2015, we would have to say, okay, we want to do work for you, but we also want to, this is going to have some added cost. We don't have the available data right here. However, if a client came to us and said, hey, we want to do a big statewide advertising campaign in Texas, we'd be able to say, okay, we have a lot of good coverage in Texas, but we're missing some data right here and over here. I believe this is the Odessa Midland media market. If you really want to talk to people in Odessa, we're going to need to go out and get that data for you. All right. Now, talked a little bit about that. Next thing I want to transition to is how many people in here actually work at a startup? No. That's okay. All right. So, as you're growing a startup, right, we have our product offering, which is our Tableau platform, but as we want that platform to grow and evolve, but we also want to add new products to our queue. We want to be able to find newer and better ways of helping our clients optimize their media. And so instead of going out and investing in a product road mapping software or a project management software, we said, hey, let's just use Tableau. Now this is all anonymized. I'm not giving away any secrets here. But we said, hey, we need to map out where Deeproot is going in the next couple of years, And right away here, I can see that we have, 12 projects in the queue. We have, their priority, their difficulty, and we have different events. We have a kickoff, a prototype, a finalization and development. And right away, what we were able to do as an analyst and a product team, we could say, hey, this is where we're going, this is what we need, and this is how long it's going to take, right? And making this, visually the way that we did, it was a much easier tool for us to use to communicate, to upper management, the resources that we're going to need, how much development time we're going to need, whether or not, this is, as they can see, the priority level, project 3, which I don't even remember what it was, it was priority level 3. So if we find we're eating into a lot of development time, we have client needs as the political race picked up, maybe something like this needs to be tabled until post-election, things like that. So this was, I can't take credit for making this, our director of product did, but we were all amazed. This was pretty cool. All right, and I'm actually not even going to transition back over to the PowerPoint. I'll just go straight into the next part of the presentation, which is how Deeproot, we get the chance on occasion, less so because of the political calendar, but we do get the chance to sort of use Tableau very creatively, to come up with visualizations that are sort of clickbait for, people we want to talk to, their marketing materials, their thought leadership materials, and, the fact that we can use Tableau to, do that is great because we don't have to go out and hire graphic designers or find someone in-house who can do that. We can just, anyone at our company can actually come up with some of the things I'm going to show you. All right, how many of you have heard of a Sankey diagram? A couple of you. How many of you have made a Sankey diagram? Good, good. Okay, great. Love this. Oh, nope. There it is. All right. This, I kid you not, this is a double-sided Sankey. All right. And so we actually had a particular case study about a year ago. We wanted to look at, swing voters in the United States, right? Swing voters, they're a big audience. It's a broad coalition of people of all ages. And we wanted to say, hey, what do they watch on television, okay? And so in the middle here, I have rank ordered from 1 to 20, the programs on broadcast television that have the highest rating for a swing voter audience, okay? So, as you can see here, number 1 is NBC Nightly News. So if you're trying to talk to swing voters in this particular media market, NBC Nightly News is the place to go. However, swing voters come in all ages, right? And what we have here on this side is we have an audience that is tailored specifically to swing voters, ages 55 and above. We call them boomer swing voters. But we also have an audience that is tailored specifically to swing voters who are, in between 25 and 35. These are our millennial swing voters. And we wanted to see, hey, is the pattern of viewership on television for boomer swing voters and millennial swing voters similar or different to our broad swing voter universe? And do you actually need Deeproot to find these particular targets on television? So right away, you can see some differences in the way that these 3 coalitions of voters actually watch TV. Right away, I see here that CBS Evening News, right, ranks number 4 for older swing voters. Okay, so if you're trying to run an ad and you want to reach a swing voter audience and you're talking about Medicare, all right, maybe CBS Evening News is the place to go. However, it ranks last for millennial swing voters. Okay, so here's where you put Medicare, here's where you put Obamacare. All right. These same sort of nuances we can see not just on broadcast programming, but even more sharply on cable programming. So same diagram. This is just cable instead of broadcast. And right away, if you're trying to reach swing voters of all ages, where are you gonna put your ad? ESPN, Sports Center. Everybody watches it, okay? It ranks number 1 for all of our swing voter coalitions. But again, right away, I see some very different viewership patterns, all right? Number 2 for our boomer swing voters is Fox News Channel during prime time. Okay, guess where it is for millennial swing voters? Dead last. Okay. Again, this was we were like, all right, here we go. So what we were able to do with our data, now this wasn't answering a particular client question, it was really us just, with our curiosity saying, hey, we've got audiences, we have swing voters, we have older swing voters, we have younger swing voters, do they watch television differently? Yes. And, could we put something out there on our website? Could we shop something around to reporters to say, hey, swing voters watch television differently. Here's why you need Deeproot to find them on television. Another thing that we were able to do. So I'm sure, again, we're really diving into politics here. Okay, almost done, guys. We, again, had sort of an internal question. We said, hey, if we were given, carte blanche, right? If someone came to Deeproot and said, Deeproot, tell me when I should schedule the acceptance speech for the Republican nominee at the Republican National Convention. What time should it air at? I want to talk to people across the entire country, not just people on the East Coast, or Cleveland, where the RNC, where the Republican convention was, is on East Coast time. So we said, okay, if we actually were asked this question, will we be able to answer it? And the answer is yes. So first off, just using some very simple visualizations. Again, this is volume over time. I was able to look at and I could say, hey, on the East Coast, right, peak viewership happens at 9:15 p.m. Central time, let's go to Texas, right? In Austin, we're in Central time. Peak viewership happens at about 10 p.m. And this is, again, this time scale is just the Eastern time scale, okay? So at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, peak viewership happens in Central states. Mountain time, peak viewership happens at 11 p.m. Eastern. Pacific time, peak viewership happens at about 11:30. So again, nothing surprising here. You can see peak viewership across the time zones. But what we wanted to say is we wanted to say, hey, is there an optimal time, across every time zone where you're going to maximize the number of swing voters tuned in? And the answer is yes. So using our data on swing voters in the United States, we were able to pinpoint the exact time at which we should say, hey, if you want to maximize reach on this audience, you should put the acceptance speech for the candidate at 9:45 p.m. And does anyone remember when Donald Trump started giving his speech? Well, so this is at the convention. So this is actually, he started giving his speech at around like 9:35. So it was pretty close to that 9:45 time. Now, we shopped this around, we promoted this well before the acceptance speech. So I'm not saying that we influenced, his acceptance speech time, but, anyway. All right, last one. Okay, I mentioned earlier that we had some audiences. They were called reluctant Republicans and disaffected Democrats. This is the last political reference I'm gonna make. Well, we called these the ticket splitters. Now, for 2016, well, I guess, 2016 was a weird election cycle. Yeah, no doubt about that. I am thankful that it's over. Anyway, but given the unique nature of not only the candidates that were running for, the highest office in the United States, but they're sort of emerged from this, from this election, a unique coalition of voters. And we called those the ticket splitters. So reluctant Republicans, right, are there, and disaffected Democrats. Now, reluctant Republicans are, it's an audience that would generally vote Republican down ballot, but has some, it's not really a Trump supporter and has some hesitation about Hillary Clinton. That's why their icon, they have a little question mark. And then we have disaffected Democrats, right? These are voters that would traditionally vote Democratic down ballot, but they are very much in support of Trump. So our icon has a donkey with a Trump comb over on it. Yeah. We have stickers of those too, available upon request. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to say, hey, across the United States, where are these coalitions of voters? Where are pockets of these voters? Are they more concentrated in one area of the U.S. versus the other? And so what you can see here is you can see West Virginia has the highest index, and you can see it right here for disaffected Democrats. So this is where if you are trying to target a reluctant Republican audience in West Virginia, you're going to have some trouble doing that. here you can see that in Minnesota and Virginia, this actually had the highest index for reluctant Republicans. So these are places where, again, this was done back in April. We predicted that these were areas where these types of voters would be either easy or more difficult to reach. But what we like about this visualization is that we used sort of this launch of these ticket splitter audiences as a marketing push for our firm, saying that 2016 is weird. You need to know how to target these voters. This is going to be a very difficult election. And so we put out a number of different visualizations like this. And the reason I'm just kind of showboating this one is because if you hover over the states, it highlights the Sankey. And so you can see the relative difference of each of the states. And then also, just as a Tableau tip, you can actually use dynamic tooltips right here. So I could see, as I'm hovering over Colorado, I can see the relative rank of each state for each different audience, and I can say, using the dynamic tooltip, that reluctant Republicans represent a greater proportion of the state electorate than disaffected Democrats by 76%. So, all right, no more politics, all done. With that, thank you very much. I hope you guys have enjoyed this and hope I didn't, stir up any emotions about the political atmosphere at all. But I think we still have a few minutes for questions. Yeah? Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
So how do you serve this compliance? Is it in the web app or something?
Yeah, so what we did is using Tableau server, we went ahead and just set up kind of a guest site or a marketing site. And we put not just this visualization, but a few others, at different levels of geography. And, our clients that we already had onboarded, we said, hey, we'll give you access to this, play around with it, see if you could use it. And then for prospects, what we did is we actually gave them when they went to our website, they could actually request, access to this. And the only requests we got were from, our firm does lean right, but the only requests we got were from very high-level Democratic strategists, so we said, no way, we're not giving away these secrets. Go ahead.
For your segmentation of them.
So yeah, that's a great question. So we partner with a firm that does micro-targeting across the United States. They'll go out and they'll do surveys and things like that. And so we use them to go out and talk to over 8,000 people across the United States and figure out from there, what the sentiment was and what these target audiences actually look like. Does that answer your question?
So they do the work, or you do the work?
They do the work. We, yeah. And again, we're a sister company to them, so yeah, we're kind of together. So, yes, Jeff. How do we keep them in sync? That's a great, okay, so the question was, how many data sources do we have and how do we keep them in sync? So as of, we're always getting new data sources. I think, at the cutoff point for this election, we are up to about 7 different, very robust data sources that we use, on a day-to-day basis. Anything from the set-top box data to earned media data to ad occurrence data and things like that. And then, keeping things in sync is very much a process. But like I said, we've transitioned over to a RDB, a relational database management system that's hosted in the cloud. And so we've got a great girl who's sort of managing that and taking the lead on that. But it's still a growing process, and yeah. Yes? So our sister company does all the normalizing, and then we receive a prepared file that we then ingest into our process. Yeah. If you're interested in that, I can give you I'm gonna trip over that. I can give you, that company's contact info as well if you're interested. Yes? Oh, so that was ironically, it was done just manually. We decided, hey, we need to, we've kept things in different spreadsheets over the course of the years, as far as like product and where we're going. And so one day we actually put an intern to use saying, hey, we have all this, put it in a nice, in a nice formatted data set, and then we developed the product roadmap from that. So, manual. It was a good use case for our intern because they got some data prep skills with that. So, yeah. Other questions? Yes.
Is there one product that
Oh no, so it's all the same. So we offer, a suite of dashboards on the front end that, help their media buys, and it's the same 10 dashboards, and then same thing on the back end. It's the same 8 dashboards that they can access. It's just the data that, populates them is a little bit different. Data in New Hampshire is going to be different than data in Ohio. So, yeah. Other questions? Yes, no, that's a great question. So the question was, do we ever encounter, competing media markets? And yes, we do. I'll actually go back to that. I love this clicker. This is great. Oh, come here. So an example here, right? So I'll just use New Hampshire for an example. So this market right here, actually, you know what? We're using Tableau. Come on, what am I doing? I can zoom. Okay, there we go. So this media market right here is Boston. As you can see, it covers Boston with its namesake, but it also covers a significant portion of New Hampshire. And this has always been a tricky market in that, markets that cross state lines tend to have, different television stations. You have an affiliate for New Hampshire, and then you have an affiliate for Massachusetts as well. And so we do run into that, and that's that's where we have to be very careful with, the data that we're looking at. And, again, this happens with ad occurrence data as well. We have to definitely make sure our vendors are, coding the right ad on the right station for the right state. So, yes. No, I guess we have a working knowledge of sort of, their product and sort of what they offer as well. But no, we've been in hunker down mode for the past year. But that is something that we're going to start doing. A lot. Now that we're out of the 2016 cycle, 2017, is kind of an off year for us, and that's when we really get down and really do some big development and also market research analysis, like what we do to research our competitors. So, good question. Others? All right, they're telling me I'm good. I can talk forever. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you guys came.